Hello everybody and welcome to Organian's Puzzle Box. If you're interested in creating a space scene for Unreal Engine or Blender or any other software and you want to have the crispiest texture on your planet that you can see from outer space, then take a look at this video and you will learn a thing or two of how to create something like that. If you want a planet that has the fidelity of what you see in movies and so on, then you need a very high resolution texture. Luckily, the internet is full of high resolution textures, and some of you might be thinking 4K, 8K might be enough. I would go for 16K if possible, or 32K, but what I'm going to show you is 16K spread around 6 times across a sphere, and we're going to achieve this by using a technique called UDEMs, which effectively means taking a sphere and having more than one UV for it. The difference between a 16K texture and my version of a 16K texture, even though we're using effectively the same texture twice, is that in the version that I create, the detail is far crispier and looks a lot more ingrained within reality, because we're able to control the amount of depth of our crevices in the planet and also the fidelity of the texture by super sampling effectively by using this technique, as you can see in this image. Of course, results like this, or even better results, can be achieved with my Planet Creator project, which you can get from ArtStation, Gumroad, Patreon, Creo, YouTube membership. So if you want that, you can use that effectively that project, and then you can get some really fine detailed planets just like that. The link is in the description below. I would also like to thank all of my Patreons and all the Creo supporters. You guys push me to make more content and really, try to achieve the best results. I really appreciate the support. If you guys want access to all of my projects, please consider joining Patreon or Creo or the YouTube membership. I would definitely lean towards Creo if I were you, because I think you're getting more content for the same amount of money from multiple creators on that platform. But whichever you want. You guys know that I love coffee, and if you want to buy me a coffee, then consider getting one of my projects. So let's not delay this any further. Let's begin the tutorial. The software that we're going to use is Blender, Unreal Engine, Substance Painter, and we could try a little bit of Photoshop and AI Upscaler if we want to. Photoshop and AI Upscaler are optional, but I would say Blender, Unreal Engine, and Substance Painter are quite useful for this because they're all going to drive this process forward. We're now going to begin our journey in Blender to start off with, and I'm just going to be in my viewport, and I've got my default cube, and for once nobody needs to delete it. We're actually going to use a default cube. Normally people will consider making a sphere like that, okay, to create a mesh for a planet. That is wrong. You don't want to do that. Trust me, I'm going to show you some really nice tricks in Blender to achieve a perfect sphere. Right, now let me just show you the problem with the normal sphere. If you, let's say you add a subdivision surface in here, and then you subdivide it a couple of times, and then you're also going to go up here and do like a shade smooth, and maybe you're going to go in here and in the normals tab and press the auto smooth. And now you might think for a second that you have a perfectly nice sphere, but if you look closer right about here, you'll notice some stretching. Is there a way to fix the stretching? No. Okay, maybe there is a way to fix the stretching. I just wanted to be very dramatic about it. But if you really want to get rid of that, although for our particular purpose it won't matter because it will still look wrong, you can effectively create a duplicate of the sphere. Let's say you've got this sphere here and you've got this one here, and you want to get rid of that sort of pinching there at the top, and which is caused, by the way, because we got all these triangles, so we don't have nice smooth polygons. So what we're doing effectively is we're going to this is another trick. I'm just going to rotate this by 90 degrees, so when you do that, then your point is going to be over there, you know what I mean? So what you want to do now is you want to copy the normal face data from this sphere to this sphere, and to do this you're going to go into your normal sphere over here, the one that you're trying to do to fix, and then you've got an option in here where it says data transfer, so you can click that. You can then have a look at the face corner data, and you're going to have to tick that box, make sure it's custom normals, and then you're going to select nearest face interpolated, and then in the where was it now, somewhere around here, the source is going to have to be sphere 0001, and once you select that source, which for some reason it seems to have locked my computer, but once it selects that source, it should be able to transfer the data from here to there. I think the only reason why it's taking so long is because both the spheres have a lot of geometry, and you can see now that the sort of the stretching, the wrinkles up here are now gone because we transferred the normal data from here to here. But again, I would recommend not having such a smooth surface on this particular one when you do this transfer, because otherwise it will take quite a bit of time for that normal information to transfer over, and you know, and it's also going to be a bit ghostly looking on your target mesh if you do that. So just reduce the subdivision on the targeted sphere that you're transferring the vertex normal to that. So that will fix that, but we're not, you know, that's just me showing an example. Let's just move on to the cube. Now you might be thinking, why am I using a cube for this? And there are a couple of reasons. One of them was the wrinkling at the top that I showed you, but the next reason is because the cube has some really nice straightforward UVs. So I'm going to open another panel over here, and I'm going to go into my UV editor as well. With the cube selected, I'm going to add a subdivision modifier, and you've probably seen this already if you're watching Blender, but if you add a few subdivision levels here, the cube will turn into a sphere, but it's not exactly a sphere. Like if you watch it, it's not actually a sphere. So in order for us to fix that, we can add a cast modifier, and then make sure it's set to sphere and set the factor to 1. And now it's actually a perfect sphere. And another thing that we want to do is go into object and select shade smooth, and now we have a nice smooth surface for our cube sphere thingy. I'm also going to create the material. I'm going to call this planet, so we have a name for our material. And then over here in the UV editor, now this is the important part, we're going to select all of our faces by pressing A on the keyboard so we can see them, but we can also click this button up here so we always see the faces regardless if we have selected them or not. Now with these faces over here, I'm actually going to take them away and put them to one side because we need to create our UDEMs here inside of Blender. So in order for us to do this, I am going to press new here at the top. I'm going to call that UDEM. This width and height doesn't really matter if you set it up to anything, but I'm just going to put it at 4096 by 4096. I'm going to press the tiled button, very important. And then I'm going to press OK. And this has now created the first tile set. And you can see here that it also added this, this UDEM tile option. If we press the plus button, it gives us an option to create a new one. And I'm going to put number 5 in there because we have 6 faces, but we need to create 5 more tiles. We've already created one. And I'm going to press OK. And this will generate another 5 tiles over here. Now we need to take every one of these faces from here and drop them inside here. So I'm going to select the first face. I'm going to press U on the keyboard and press unwrap, which is now in place where we wanted. I'm going to select the next one over here, gonna press U on the keyboard and unwrap, but it's in the same space as the first tile. So in order for me to move it one block with the face selected, I'm gonna press G on the keyboard and number 1, which will move it one slot forward. I'm going to select the next one, press U and unwrap, press G on the keyboard, and now I'm going to press 2 to move it 2 tiles across. And we are going to do this for everything. So G3 and then, unwrap, G4 and then unwrap, G5. Okay, so now we've added all of the faces in each of their allocated UDEM tiles, and as you can probably now imagine why the resolution is going to be very high, because we have added each of these faces of the cube into their own texture slot, but it's the same, it's one material. Now, one thing that we need to do, very important, do not foresee this step. Do not forget about this step. Select all of these faces and then scale. So press S on the keyboard, and if you're scaling down, you can see that it's doing it this way, which is wrong. We don't want them to cross between each of the tiles. So we're gonna go up here, and where we've got this button over here, we've got it's set right now to bounding box center. I'm going to set it to individual origins. So whatever you've got in there, just select it to individual origins and then scale downwards just a little bit. Okay, just like that. So the reason why we're doing this is effectively so we don't get any sort of any artifacting in between the tiles. Otherwise we'll see these lines in Substance Painter, which is something that we do not want. Now with that done, we can get out of edit mode, and our cube sphere is now completely unwrapped. So what I'm going to do, with it selected, I can press File, Export as an FBX. I'm gonna select an object in here. The geometry, I'm going to set the face only, and I'm just gonna put it in my in downloads. Gonna call it planet sphere UDEM times 6, and then export as FBX, and that's done. And now let's go and get our texture. The best place for us to get textures is from Google, but not really. We're gonna type in here Mars 16K texture, and this will find a guy on DeviantArt called Farge Tanik. And if you click him, he actually has a bunch of textures at 16K. So just have a look at his profile. I would definitely recommend you give it a look and have a look at the other textures that he's providing in here. But yeah, he's got Mars with true colors at 16K. He's got Io, the moon 16K. So yeah, it's pretty cool. But we'll do the Mars one. So I'm going to select it. Make sure this whole thing with right clicking and save image as will not work. You'll not get the 16K version. What you need to do is press the download button. You most likely will need to have an account on DeviantArt. Again, you can get your texture from wherever you want. It doesn't even need to be a 16K. It could be an 8K or 4K, but you're not going to get the same quality as what we've got right now. Now, very important to understand is that this here is a texture that would wrap around the sphere. And actually, I'm going to quickly show you in Blender what I mean by this, because I think that's very important. If we go into our shader editor in here and we add a image texture, I'm going to open the texture that because I've already got it downloaded. So I'm just gonna go into my folder where I've got them and get the Mars texture. Just give me 1 second. Yeah, I've got the Mars texture, and I'm going to connect it in here. Now, what you'll notice once this texture loads is that, because we've done what we've done earlier with the UDEMs, it doesn't look right. This is what we're seeing right now. So this is not good. But if this was, let's say, I'm going to add a sphere over here, and let me just subdivide it very quickly just so we can have a higher quality of it, and just drag it to one side. And if I set the material of this sphere to that planet material, you will notice that the sphere looks okay with the texture, apart from the poles, which are the ones that are getting sort of stretched. But you could fix this by selecting the texture, and where you've got this mode here, flat box sphere tube, just select sphere, and that should it should have fixed the issue. I'm not really, let me just have a look. Yeah, so we've got the flat one. Yeah, it seems it's not really fixing it. I can't remember now. There was a way to get Blender to show that properly. I just cannot remember for the life of me now which of the options in here it was, because it seems it doesn't work on the sphere point. It just sort of messes it up. So it's gotta be, I don't think it's box either. Anyway, regardless, yeah, so you can see how on a normal, you know, on a normal sphere this would be okay on the sides, but the poles are wrong. Now on the actual box over here, you know, this one, if you want this to be sort of you know, for this to work, again, I think in Blender we're gonna have a hard time getting that to work with these UDEMs, but in Blender and in Substance Painter will be okay. So we've got the texture. It's now time to go into Substance Painter and see what we can do. Okay, so in Substance Painter we are going to press File, New, and then we're going to find the mesh, which is this one here, and we're going to keep the document resolution at 4K. And over here, very importantly, you've got to have this option set up this way. So UV tile settings, UDEMs, you know, to be ticked here, where we've got use UV tile workflow, but preserve UV tile layout per material. Don't do the convert UV tiles into individual texture sets. You don't want to do that. So we're going to press OK, and this will open the sphere that we've created, and you can see the UDEMs over here on the side. I'm just going to have a look at the sphere, and now we want to import the texture. But before we do that, let me just show you why I said you know, something like Photoshop would be useful. So in Photoshop, if you open, let me just open that texture over here. So in Photoshop, it's quite nice if you are creating a displacement map, or a height map more like, from the original texture. And one of the easiest ways for me to do this is just go over here in adjustments and do a black and white. So that's why you can pretty much use anything really that can allow you to turn this into a black and white. But also with the black and white added, I am going to add an invert node over here, which will then invert the colors of the texture. So whatever it was white is black, it's now black, and whatever it was black, it's now white. And I do that just because it gives me a softer sort of look at the height map that I'm going to add, but you could have left it the way it was earlier. Anyway, I already have one of these. I don't need to save another one, so I'm just gonna put that down. Now let me just get Photoshop out of the way, and now in here I'm gonna press the plus button, and I'm gonna add resources. So the resources I'm going to add is the texture and the displacement texture. Once I put them in here, I can then define them as textures and import into the current session, and I'm going to press import. This will bring the textures within Substance Painter. We are going to generate a normal map as well, but we're not going to generate it via Photoshop, although we could do that as well. We are going to generate it directly from a displacement map. You can also do it from the color map if you want. But with the sphere now open and the texture added in, we can delete this layer and add a fill layer. So this is pretty fast actually. With the fill layer added, we can drop our color into the base color, which will then add the texture, and it will look just as wrong as it did in Blender. And then over here where we've got the roughness, we can actually add the black and white texture to act as a roughness. That should be fine. We could do that. Bear in mind, this is a 16K texture that we're adding in. Over in the height map, which is for extra detail, we can add that into the height map, add the black and white texture into the height map, and nothing in the normal. We don't need anything in the normal. Now, obviously, this doesn't look right. Something is wrong with it, okay? But it's already more detailed than what we had if we just added the texture on a normal sphere. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to select from UV projection. I'm going to change this to a spherical projection, which will then fix the texture across the entire sphere, well, cube sphere. Okay, so that's now done. For some reason I'm getting a bit of delay in Substance Painter. It must be, I think it's from OBS. Anyway, so now that's added. And look at that sort of crispiness of the texture there. Okay, so that's how crisp that is. You can notice how well defined that looks as opposed to just using the normal texture. Now, some other things that we can do here is we can right click and we can add a filter, and with this filter added, we can change the, well, we can add a sharp, so we can sharpen the texture a bit more. I'll probably leave it at that sort of detail, but it really depends on what detail you want. I can then right click again and add another filter. Also, let me just close Photoshop because it's eating up my video memory. Right, so with this filter added, I can look for a height to normal blend, and this will take the height map that we've got and turn it into a normal map. And I'm going to change the height depth to 1. Okay, and with that done, we now have a really good looking planet texture. Now, if for some reason you're seeing these lines across where we've got our intersection of every cube face, then that means that in Blender we didn't do a good enough job at spacing things out. So what I mean by this is, over here in the UV editor, you've got to look at your cube, select all of these and shrink them down a bit more like that, and then you can export the FBX again. Export the FBX where you did it before. Then go back into Substance Painter, select the project configuration tab, select the mesh again and press OK, and this should load up the mesh exactly how it was, because basically you're just reloading the same mesh. So Substance Painter is smart enough to know that, and it will recalculate all the textures you've added, and it will fix it should fix the issue. If not, it's just really a balancing of the scale in Blender in order to fix any kind of seams, and you can see now that those seams are resolved. So we don't have any more seams, just because I have reduced a little bit the boundaries in there. Actually, you can still see a little bit here. So let me just have a look at that. Some of these, actually, by the way, there are also a bit of glitching from Substance Painter, so sometimes they actually won't be there. But if everything else fails, then what you can do is you can deactivate delete the height to normal. And then over here in the fill layer, you see after we deleted the height to normal, we no longer have a problem. What we could do is we can deactivate the height, or we could still leave it in here. It's not really a problem, but it's not gonna create much of an effect. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click it, add a filter, and then in the filter, actually not a filter, we're going to add levels. And then in the levels tab, we can select height, and then with height selected, we can start editing it. For some reason it's not changing over to height. Okay, now it did it. So let's just start dragging these sliders a little bit, and for us to bring some of that height showing up in the scene. And this differs from texture to texture. Just make sure that in the fill layer you actually do have a height selected. If you're not really seeing anything changing over here, you can always deactivate this, deactivate the height, and you can add another fill layer over here, deactivate color, metal, roughness, normal, and just leave the height channel only. And then you can drag that texture over into the height channel. Make sure that this is also set to spherical. This is probably the best way to do it. I have no idea why Substance Painter is designed to work so slow right now. I have no idea. Anyway, once you add that, you can right click it, add levels, and then with levels added, you can change the height properties over here and be able to bring some more of that height detail on your planet, because that's very important. That's what's going to pretty much guarantee a more a nicer shape on the planet overall when you put it into something like Unreal Engine, or whatever else you're going to use it that supports UDEMs. So that's about that's about it really in terms of Substance Painter. Now, one thing that you can do at this point, because we are viewing this in 4K, so we can export this either as a 4K or as an 8K. I have the example of both of the textures just so you can see the difference there. You know, to export this, you would go up here, export textures, and then over in here you can select, for example, which comes predefined, Unreal Engine 4 packed, then the folder where you want to save them, and then the texture resolution. Now 8K is pretty big. If you want to do that, that's fine. If not, you can go with 4K. But yeah, I think 8K would be like the best possible sort of thing that you can get on around 12 gigabytes of VRAM. If you've got 24 gigabytes, like a 3090 or a 4090 RTX, then yeah, go for it. Go for 8K. Go for even higher if you split the UDEMs even more. And here's the two textures in Unreal Engine. So on the left side, we've got the 16K loaded up on a sphere. Actually, if I go into can I go into wireframe mode? Yeah, if you go into wireframe mode, you can see this is a normal sphere and this is our cube sphere. Okay, and the differences here are staggering, as you can probably notice. The texture on this side looks a lot crispier, a lot nicer, and this one looks less detailed. Now, you know, obviously even from close-ups we can get probably around here, or let's just try at the top. So we can be around here and have a look at this planet. If we go over here, you will notice it looks a lot more washed out, and this does have a normal map applied to it. So before anybody says that there's no normal map, there is. Yeah, I'm just gonna, you know, just to point something out here. If I open the material from you know, the planet on the left side, I can actually add the normal map from the planet on the right side, although they won't be matching up at all, because unfortunately one of them is a sphere and the other one is a cube that's split into 6 parts. We can still apply the normal map. It will just look a bit, you know, as I said, out of sync from the actual mesh, but we should be able to see just by adding the normal map of this material how much more the resolution sort of increases on that. So here I've got the material. This is the normal map here that we are using, but let me just bring the normal map from. Yeah, so this is the normal map of the UDEM, and I'm not even gonna multiply it. I'm just gonna drag it straight in there and press apply, and this will add that normal map over here, and we should be able to see a change. And you're seeing it already. So yeah, the normal map pretty much adds so much more texture over to this planet just by doing that straight away. But you know, you've got to understand that this sphere is using 1 UV tile, right? This one is using 6. So imagine if we were using the same this mesh, right? If we would have been in Substance Painter and would have used the procedural material times 6 and then exported at 8K, the resolution would be even better. But we were specifically going for the Mars texture here, the 16K. Now, very importantly, before you start bringing in your UDEMs, because when you export UDEMs, I'll show you exactly what they look like. So they'll look like this. You've got all of these textures, you know, there's base color 6 times, normal map 6 times, and the normal roughness and all that stuff 6 times. So you just select all of these textures, and you drag them into the content browser in Unreal Engine like that, and then Unreal Engine will create stacks. These are the free stacks of those UDEMs. We'll create free stacks. Actually, no, these are the free stacks. Yeah, and they will contain all the images inside of there because Unreal Engine is smart. But you're noticing this VT over here, and that's important because without this it won't work. So what you need to do before you bring your textures in, before you bring your mesh in Unreal Engine, you first need to go into your whatever project you're opening this into. You're gonna have to go into your project settings, search for texture here at the top, and then you're going to have an option where it says virtual texture. You will need to enable virtual texture support. That is very important. Once you do that, restart the engine, it will compile some shaders, and then you're able to use virtual textures. So that's, you know, as I said, very important that you do this, otherwise the UDEMs will not function within your project if you don't do this. Unreal Engine will not know what to do with them. It will not import, the textures in a proper way. Now, the texture that we've exported out of Substance Painter, by the way, can be used, as I said, on a sphere object. This sphere object, it still doesn't have the same resolution as what this planet here, this cube has, because again, we're still in a one UV tile, but the normal map and everything else that we've exported out of Substance Painter is of high resolution, is very high resolution, as I've said, because it is intended to work on something like this. Okay, so what we're seeing here, effectively, the normal map that we've added, I can probably show you this in the material in here. If I bring the UDEM texture and plug it into the base color and then press apply, I don't know what kind of errors, if there's going to be any errors, but yeah, you can see that. So what you're actually noticing here, and you might not even know this, but this is just one tile on the sphere, right? This is one tile. This one contains 6 tiles. This one contains 1 tile. So you're only seeing tile number 1 because that's the only one that this sphere mesh is reading at the minute, okay? Remember, we've split the cube in 6 pieces across 6 UV tiles, okay? So that's pretty much it in terms of doing that, and then you can just use the planet in whatever project you want. It's going to be highly detailed, and you can also displace it if you want, although with the displacement side of things, can get problematic and tricky. Displacement generally creates artifacting quite easily. But I hope you guys learned something useful today. I'm definitely very glad that I've got this technique, because whenever I want to make a very crisp and detailed planet, I use this method, or I use my planet creator, or I'll do some texture stitching just to get the highest possible resolution. But this is a very good way of showcasing the planets from our solar system. You can also use UDEMs with Substance Painter's procedural materials. That works just as well. Actually, it might be even more powerful if you want to create your own version of planets. So yeah, it's just overall, it's just a very good way of achieving very good results. So thank you for my Patreons, thank you for Creo, thank you for the support. You guys really help me do what I do, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Stay safe.